One of the downsides of iTunes is it only shows X number of episodes in the feed. So currently, I'm at 650 episodes of Set Lusting Bruce, some of them mini bonus episodes. And unless you go digging, it is hard to find some of our earlier episodes. So I will be routinely pulling old episodes and reissuing them. Today, I have an episode that was actually episode 17. Came out November 19th, 2015. Um, Andre Provost at the time was 19, and he joined me from Canada and talked about his Springsteen fandom. Andre was proud of the fact that he was a younger Bruce fan, and I had a great time talking to him. What I find interesting is this had been only a couple of months into me recording the podcast that I already had come up with this is a podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. Still didn't have an intro, so I back then I was still doing clips of Springsteen music. But anyway, here is the episode. Please enjoy, and thank you so much for listening. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am Jesse Jackson, and I am so happy to welcome Andre today. Hello, Andre. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Andre. I don't pack the same punch that most Bruce fans do. I'm a lot younger than the average Bruce fan. I'm seeing more and more Bruce fans that are even younger than I, but it's nice to be in that age range where it's kind of a unique characteristic to be a Bruce fan.
That's one of the reasons I actually just love talking to everyone. I'm a firm believer that every Bruce fan has a story, and my podcast is goal is to get them all on the record. You reached out to me, I guess, after the Peter interview and said, I'm a younger than normal Bruce fan. I think I should be on your show. And I said, absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Hey, no pleasure. I was really looking forward to it most of my reading week, so there's that.
Oh, good. Tell me, how young are you, kind sir?
I am the young age of 19.
Oh, wow, that is young.
I suppose, contextually, yeah, it's young for a Bruce fan, but it's enough that I have a glimpse of the life experience.
Oh, absolutely. And you're in double digits, so it's not like you're nine, saying, "Hey, Mr. Jesse, how you doing?" And where are you from, Andre?
I hail from Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada.
Okay. And for us Americans that are very, very ignorant of geography, where kind of Canada-wise is that?
Canada-wise, because I believe the apex of Canada is mostly Toronto.
Okay.
So if you were to imagine where my city is, I think it's a good estimate. Actually, no, a better estimate for you guys would be, I'm just over the state of Montana,
Okay.
but at about, I'd say at least 150 miles north.
For my previous job, I spent time in Winnipeg.
All right.
That was Minnesota, I guess, right? That's closer, to that.
Yes.
As my friends in Canada said, yeah, we're the non-pretty part of Canada.
Yeah, it's the very flat part where you can watch your
Yes.
dog run away for 3 days.
The first time I went to Winnipeg, I had just seen the Winter Olympics.
Ah,
And it's like, wow, I can't wait to go to Canada. So I land in Winnipeg and we get in the rent-a-car and it looks like Plano, which is a Texas suburb. And it's like, hey, there's even a Dairy Queen here. How can there be a Dairy Queen in Canada?
yeah. You think it's cold enough up here that we don't need ice cream, but
Yeah.
apparently it's a thing that we like to indulge in, supposedly.
I never made a Winnipeg, Canada winter, but I did go in November once and it was pretty cold. I kept thinking that I should go in January, February and earn the polar bear badge. Like the Boy Scouts have if you sleep where it's frozen overnight, you get a polar bear badge. So I thought, my work should have a polar bear badge. You went to the Winnipeg office. Tell me how you found Bruce.
I mean, it was one of those things that I always listened to the older rock stations here in town.
Okay.
Dad was a bigger influence on my music life, and I think it really started when it was a night after I had finished tutoring one of the kids that I used to tutor. He just picked me up in the car. Born to Run was playing on the radio.
Okay.
And my dad's not a very musically talented person in the sense that his general cognition of music is not the best.
Okay.
However, what always blew his mind was that big I don't I for the lack of a better term, like the switch in Born to Run where he does the countdown and then it jumps into the part with the highway jammed full
Yeah.
of broken
Yeah.
arrows.
Yeah, kind of. And I think switch is a good way to do it, but where they kind of do the break, and then it's
Yeah.
almost he changes gears and almost like, okay, let's go to we're going to do a quick sprint to the finish.
Yeah, and that's it. That was a really big part. Like that song. Well, when he was younger, that album came out when he was. Let me think here. He was 15 years old when that album came out.
Okay.
So for him, Born to Run was like his teenage album. So Born to
Hmm.
Run, the track, not necessarily just the album, but the track
Yeah.
really held a special place. So for him, it was a big deal that he was able to share this big moment of the switch with me, and he
Yeah.
made sure to point it out and explain that that Bruce is the boss,
Right.
and that was a really important part. And that's where it started. I kind of started dabbling in Bruce's stuff. I was 16 back then, so it was mostly like went home and downloaded the greatest hits, but the one that was released in 1999, I believe.
Yes. Okay.
So the song that really caught me onto him was "The River."
Yeah. Okay.
That one was, yeah, that one was probably the one that caught me. But a funny little story from when I was downloading that album. So I was downloading it off the public school Wi-Fi in my
Okay.
high school, and apparently the album was big enough that it brought down the entire Wi-Fi for a region of town,
Yes.
and that was they tracked it back down to my computer's IP address, and they were asking like, "What on earth? What was I doing that I brought down the entire Wi-Fi?" And just being the little 16-year-old just going, "I just really wanted to download a Bruce album." Apparently, that was the twist for them that they didn't expect. So yeah, that was probably the big one. Was Born to Run in the River were the big ones that got me into Bruce Springsteen.
Okay. So you mentioned your father is he a big Bruce fan, or
Uh,
he liked that song, he liked that album?
he's got that. He's got a lot of songs that mean a lot to him from Bruce,
Okay.
but I wouldn't say he's like but he's not a giant ultimate fan. Like he'd go to a concert if he was offered the opportunity,
Okay.
but he's a person who could probably just name the bigger hits
Okay.
from the heyday.
What kind of music was played when you were growing up? Like in my case, and I make this joke a lot from the Blues Brothers, my in my house it was both kinds, country and western. I listened to a steady diet of, Merle Haggard and Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn and all these country artists. How about you?
Mine was, well, I'm actually francophone by bloodline and language, so
Okay.
I had listened to a lot of French music in general.
Okay.
But if I had to say for like mainstream stuff, it was a lot of Doobie Brothers, Boston,
Okay.
U2. It
All
was
right.
more of my dad's sort of music versus what
Okay.
was big in my time or my
Okay.
age, I should say.
You download the river and you get in trouble. How much trouble did you get into, Andre?
Oh, not much. I mean, they were just really curious because we had someone in my grade who was notorious for purposefully taking down the school Wi-Fi or for
Right.
purposefully installing viruses. And I
Yes.
happened to be his very good friend, so
Okay.
it was one of that 101 made two. So that's why they came barreling down on me. But then they found out it was just to download an album, and they were more confused than they were upset.
Were you legally downloading it?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
so
Heck yeah.
you had paid. Okay. You've talked about the river and you've talked about, the Born to Run. You sound like it's more than just a casual fandom with you. So talk to me a little bit about, what other music do you listen to, or are you like many of us where, 90% of what's on the turntable, which is an outdated term, but like, I'm on E Street Radio. If I'm listening to Bruce almost 90% of the time. How about you?
Yeah, I would say it's most of my well, I know that the comparison I use, the best comparison is that my iTunes catalog is about 12,000 songs deep.
Yes.
However, Bruce Springsteen is about 1,200 of those. Yeah, I went out of my way to go find as many albums as I could, including like the Lost Masters collection, that kind of stuff.
That's cool. Uh, so have you seen him live?
No, actually, because by the time that I was really ready to actually join Bruce, like the fandom, and to actually go see him live was at the time of release of Wrecking Ball. And at that time, he came to Edmonton. I recall not being in town when he came to Edmonton for Wrecking Ball. And otherwise, for the High Hopes tour, he didn't come out to Canada. I have yet to see him live, but unfortunately, it's just been a circumstance of bad timings that I haven't had the opportunity.
But similar story to me. I was a casual fan in, I kind of knew I graduated high school in 77, did not hear about him till right before The River was released. And a good friend of my now wife's had fell in love with him. She was going to school on the East Coast. And so I was a casual fan, like everyone else in America, and in the world, born in the USA. But I was in a small town in Louisiana where you don't get many concerts. And then when I moved to Dallas back in 86, anytime he came into Dallas, it just worked out. I couldn't see him. So I didn't see him until 2002, the Rising Tour. I just became obsessed once I saw him live. I went from being a, casual fan, enjoying the music to it sounds like you, right? Like I'm looking for every album I can find, I'm looking for bootlegs, and I'm now up to 10 shows. Kind of small in the scope of Brewstom, but still as I told my wife, hey, at least they hit double digits. Do you have a preference for, since you kind of did The River and you did Born to Run, do you have a preference for older material or newer material? Like, let's say Tunnel of Love is the dividing part. Pre Tunnel of Love or post Tunnel of Love?
That's that's a really good question. I mean, both of them carry really good hits, and I mean,
Right.
just really good songs in general. But geez, I mean, Tunnel of Love is one that I honestly, I think I really recently, I gotta be within the past month that I really started paying attention to it.
Yes.
Because I've been recently going album by album, just listening to them, and I just hit up Tunnel of Love for the first time in a while, and I mean, that's got to be probably up there in my top five from Bruce. So I mean, that dividing line is very blurry to me because I think there's that era in the '90s that he had where he kind of split from the E Street Band.
Yes.
That to be a little blunt, it was pretty rough.
Right.
I mean, there were some good ones that came out of there, like "If I Should Fall Behind" and "Ghost of Tom Joad" are
Yeah.
obviously classics.
And I personally think Better Days is one of my
Yeah,
favorite songs of his. I love the theme of Better Days, that, not waiting for my life to begin. And to me, that's a message of enjoy the journey and don't just focus on when your ship comes in. You have to enjoy all of life, both good and bad, because this is your life.
absolutely, and I concur. I mean, yeah, there's some great hits from that '90s era, but I think to probably give you the answer you're probably exactly not looking for is that both eras are incredible to me because they both show different parts of Bruce and how he grew.
Okay, I think that's a very good answer.
And say I had to pick one to live with for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
I would probably actually say, yeah, I gotta say the pre-Tunnel of Love stuff.
Okay, fair enough. When I hear a lot of fans complaining about why is he doing this song again, I always think about it's someone's first Bruce show. And if I went to a Bruce show and I did not hear him do Born to Run, I'm going to be a little disappointed, right?
No, absolutely, I concur, and I can agree with that. I mean, if I were to go to a Bruce concert, I would at least hope to hear one track from Born to Run, no matter what track it is. You hope
Right.
to hear at least one because that I mean, that's the album that I'm sure most people like. That was the Bruce album. I mean, frankly, I haven't been to 10 Bruce concerts, so I can't tell you whether or not
Yeah.
I might get annoyed of hearing it after a while. But I would
Yeah.
assume that, just the excitement of hearing that intro, that drum build up for Born to Run would still probably get me excited after hearing it more than,
I
5 times even.
Yeah, I will tell you, and my good friend Sam would just as soon them drop Born to Run to get something else. Every time I hear that beginning, that drum, and they throw up the lights, and he's out on the stage, and the fans are reaching up and playing his guitar during that break, it is I get a thrill every time. The first 7 concerts I'd gone to, I'd never heard Thunder Road live. I'm like, it just had not worked out that I had not heard Thunder Road. I'm sure there's people tired of hearing Thunder Road, but I want to hear them do it live at least once. It's such a, and to use the sports analogy, right? If Thunder Road isn't his greatest song, it's in the discussion. And I'm drawing a all all I can think is in hockey is Gretzky, and there is no discussion. Gretzky is the greatest. Yeah, there is a discussion about picture another outstanding hockey player, right? You're going to go. He's in the discussion of top 5 players of all time. I got lucky during this in 2014. I went to 3 shows, and all 3 shows he ended with Thunder Road. So I was like, okay, well, be careful what you wish for because that is the ending. And each time it was a thrill for me. I loved it.
I
Um,
can absolutely imagine that. I mean,
yeah.
when I think Thunder Road, I mean, that's probably, I gotta say, that's probably my favorite Bruce Springsteen song ever.
Yes.
And whenever I think of Thunder Road, the big thing about Born to Run, that album, is that I really fell in love with it because that was the year I graduated from. When I graduated from high school, was the year that yeah, my 18 year was when I really started getting into Bruce, like
Right.
really heavy getting into him. And I recall that I was on my graduation committee and I had proposed to have Thunder Road as one of our graduation songs.
Right.
And that didn't entirely play out. I mean, it was a group that wanted something a little more from our generation, which was fine. But I also worked at a summer camp that was about 2 hours out of town. And whenever I think of Thunder Road, I definitely think about driving out through the very boring plains of Alberta.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I can always picture Thunder Road whenever I think about working at the summer camp I worked at.
Yes.
So I mean, I just wonder whether or not, if say I were to see Thunder Road live, would I then start like associating it with that concert, or would I still forever associate it with that drive out?
I will tell you that when I Land of Hope and Dreams is one of my favorite songs. And I think if I had to pick a favorite song of Bruce's, most days I would pick Land of Hope and Dreams. It has a lot of personal emotions. We had some family problems, and I was playing it for my son that faith will be rewarded and dreams will not be thwarted. And when my I had a good friend of mine die a couple of years ago unexpectedly, and when I spoke at his funeral, I quoted Land of Hope and Dreams. 2011, when my father died, I quoted it at his funeral, though I did make the joke it seemed wrong that I wasn't quoting Johnny Cash at my dad's funeral. But when I hear it live, all those memories come flooding back to me, to quote Bruce, but they're
Yeah, I was gonna
happy
say.
memories. They it doesn't. So I think, not to put you in that emotion, but Andre, I think it would make you feel you would you would be back at that road, and you would be driving, and you would feel that emotion. That's, I think, what would be for me, and that's very cool.
No, for
The,
sure. I mean, I
yeah,
love Land of Open Dreams.
yeah,
That is such a good song. I mean, now that I know you really like that song, I'm sure you'd be pleased to hear that at the summer camp I worked at, we wound
yes,
up adopting that as one of our songs.
nice,
Because at the end of the night, we do the thing where we have a big campfire and we sing songs and like funny
yes,
songs, do skits. But there's a part where we take time to reflect on the day. And we do sing like a bit more serious songs.
right.
Like "Lean on Me." I should say that's serious, but
No, but I
"Lean
know what
on
you're
Me."
saying.
And,
Yeah,
I can't remember the other one. The one from the Beatles. Oh my gosh, I feel bad for forgetting it. Mother Mary comes
yeah.
to me, speaking words of wisdom. I
Let
can't
it
remember the
be.
name of that song.
Let
So
it be.
yes, let me. And
Okay.
that was it. This year, I finally built up the courage. A, but B, they finally asked me to bring a song to camp, and that was the one that I brought. Was "Land of Hope and Dreams."
Hmm.
and that was really fun because that was the last song that I recall playing at summer camp before the summer ended. So that was, I mean, that was a blast just to know that I was able to play Bruce before my summer came to a close.
What age group of kids are at the camp?
It can vary on the week, but the ages go from 8 to 18. But the last week is our teenage week,
Okay.
so that's when it's kids from the ages of 12 through to 18 that come out.
I think if they listen, Land of Hope and Dreams is going to it is a great message. It is a great song. And so that's a cool story. That's very nice. Um,
Yeah, I mean, for the ones who had never heard it, which were most of them, they
yeah.
really seem to enjoy it. And I mean, once they that was one of the things at summer camp is that we also do a lot of dances and stuff, and they play Cadillac Ranch, but they play the dirty nitty gritty dirt band version.
Yes, which I love.
And
I'm a big Nitty Gritty
yep,
Dirt Band fan, so yes.
it is definitely the more dancey one. It's easier to
Yes,
dance to.
absolutely.
However, the one week that they made the mistake of allowing me to DJ was the week that I found out that I don't have the nitty gritty dirt band on my computer for whatever
Yeah.
reason. So in place, I played the Bruce Springsteen version. As soon as it started, a lot of my friends, they turn and just gave me that look, the look of, oh yeah, you found a way to sneak in Bruce to the party.
Oh, this is awesome. So my son is not a big Bruce fan, and my wife tolerates my obsession. Though after seeing him, we went in 2012. We drove. We had not, and I'm sorry, listeners, you're hearing this story again, but we drove up to Cleveland to see him because he wasn't coming anywhere close to Texas, and she did homework. She, in the car, she Googled lyrics and listened to songs. I gave her albums. She had listened to Wrecking Ball, which
Nice.
she really loves that album. She thinks it's one of his best albums. And, so when she saw him live, first off, she got the biggest crush on Max. She decided that Max is just, and these guys are in their 60s. They're doing a 3 hour show.
Yeah.
So she tolerates my obsession, but when there's a chance to see him live, she's like, yes, I will go. But they make fun of me too. We just drove back from Florida, which is about a 12-hour drive, and we split it up over 2 days. It was my wife, her sister, and me in the car on the way back. And my wife's like, is he beating you down with Bruce again? And my sister-in-law is like, no, he let me listen to some 90s stuff too. And, he's been fair because if it was up to me, it'd be all Bruce all the time.
Yeah, I can feel you on that one. Definitely, absolutely.
Well, there's such a diverse catalog that no matter what your mood, you've got something that fits it. Then with the ability to download shows, you can kind of get the feeling of that and everything. That's good. Very nice. Andre, you've talked about Born to Run and you've talked about The River, but is there another album, maybe past that, Tunnel of Love, that means a lot to you?
Yeah, I would have to definitely say The Rising. The Rising is I mean, it's just an instrumental album for Bruce, but I mean, it was also an instrumental album for you guys in America with your like the 9/11 experience, but
Yeah.
it's also really big for us Canadians with the 9/11 experience as well.
And
Um,
why is that? Obviously the world was affected by, the towers coming down in 9/11, but was there something special that made you have that feeling about the 9/11 tragedies?
yeah, well, I mean, when 9/11 happened, I was really young. I think I was 5 years old.
Wow.
'Cause yeah, pretty sure I was 5 or 4 years old. I was in kindergarten. I recall watching, my morning cartoons on CBC, which is our public channel, the PBS of Canada, if you will.
So, Andre, I'm
And
going to stop you there. You just made ton of us feel incredibly old. Thank you for that.
I'm so sorry.
No, no, no. I'm just joking. I mean, just it's just in perspective, right? My son was like 12 or 14 when it happened. So yes, but anyway, okay. So you're in
Yeah, so
kindergarten, and
yeah,
so yes, you remember seeing this. Go ahead.
yeah, we were watching cartoons, and all of a sudden, flashed up, and the morning host, I can't remember her name, was like, "Hey, it's been canceled," and all of a sudden, it was the shot of the first tower with the smoke building out of it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden in Canada, there were two big news stories going on. There was the story of what was happening in New York, what happened in the Pentagon, sorry.
Right.
And then there was the other story, which was the maritime provinces in Canada. So New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador, where all of a sudden all these American planes that couldn't get home because everything was shut down were stranded in our provinces, and a lot of the residents, took them into their own homes. And to me, it struck a chord when I first heard the title track of The Rising,
Yes.
about coming up hand in hand and making your way through the billowing smoke and everything. I thought it was really big because obviously, again, 9/11 played a lot harder on you Americans than it did on us up here, but it was such a big day of unification between Canada and the States about how, Canada first responded with sending people out to help you guys, but also being able to help the Americans who were stranded in Canada the best that we could. I thought The Rising was just such an interesting perspective because obviously it was written more about the American people rising. But personally speaking, as a Canadian, it was very much about the unity that our countries showed to each other about helping each other in that time of need.
I was in Winnipeg a few years ago, on November 11th. We call it Veterans Day, but you guys call it
Yes.
Remembrance Day, right? Is that I'm getting it
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
I was amazed at how big of a holiday that is for your country. Um,
Yes. It's huge.
and it is truly is about prayer for peace and a hope for, to mix our metaphors, John Lennon's Imagine, where and I was just touched by that, and so I can imagine. It does so happen the Rising is the one song that I've heard at all 10 of my shows.
Oh,
Which is, I would not have thought, but it is the song I've heard, and it is such a powerful song. I don't know if you've gone back, but on the anniversary of 9/11 this year, Colleen, who is a Bruce Bud from the Chicago area, joined me, and we went through each track through the Rising and discussed it. But I'd love to do it again with you from a different perspective. But if you want to hear that episode, I think you'd enjoy it. It is a very special album, and one of my sons, he loves The Rising, and he loves City of Ruins, and such a powerful song. In fact, the right after 9/11, when they did the telethon to raise money, and opening with Bruce and the E Street Band, and I had not gone to the Greatest Hits tour, so to me this was kind of my first thought of seeing them together again, and to see little
uh,
Steven not as a Sopranos character, and Patty and them singing is such a
uh,
powerful, I mean, a touchstone of, in my mind, of, this, and I like how you put it, a sense of unity.
yeah, and I mean, I can imagine like obviously I wasn't even alive when Bruce and his band broke up,
Yeah,
but I can imagine the importance of it, of them getting back together. I mean, the closest thing that I can compare it to is I'm also a very big Blink 182 fan, and when they got back together back in 2010, like that's how I imagine it felt for Bruce fans. Like
yeah,
to know that your band is coming back and they're sticking together. Granted, Blink 182 didn't stick together for much longer,
yeah,
but I can understand that feeling of coming together where it's like, cool, things are back to where they're supposed to be.
yeah. And as much as, we miss Danny and we miss Clarence, in a lot of ways, this latest band that was on the Wrecking Ball and the High Hopes tour is as good as he's ever had, with the horn section and the background. I mean, I call it the E Street Orchestra, right? It is
Yeah.
just such a powerful group of musicians. So very nice. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. You've already talked a little bit about summer camp. Do you have other special memories or stories Bruce related? How about your friends seem to be good-naturedly kind of rolling their eyes at your obsession? Do you have any stories to tell about that?
Well, again, it most of my summer camp friends are also friends from my current university life, so it's
Right.
nice to have that carry over. But that was a big thing was we did a thing for camp where as a staff member you help out the counselors who are volunteers that take care of the kids.
Right.
And so to reward them, we do it like every time we do like a pizza party and some sort of activity. And this year we did a amazing race activity.
Okay.
And one of the stations was a trivia station where they had to answer questions about each staff member. And one of the staff member questions was who originally wrote Cadillac Ranch. And that was because unfortunately I couldn't make it out to the event. So they made sure to have a question that people would just immediately associate to me.
Yes.
So that was absolutely nice. And I mean, otherwise, a lot of it was definitely that I recently went through. I should say harsh, but it really wasn't that harsh. But it was a difficult, yeah, would be the word. Breakup with a girlfriend of mine that I'd been dating for about a year and a half now.
Okay.
And the reason that Bruce shows up, it's not that I broke up with her because of Bruce, but I broke up through the fact I didn't break up, but it was more that I was able to start playing guitar again, which I hadn't done for a long time.
Yeah.
And the first song that I learned was "One Step Up," so that was really big for me because that's one of my favorite songs, and it
Yeah.
was nice that I was able to just have time to pick up the guitar again and just learn that song. Otherwise, I mean, I'm sure there's little stories that I'm forgetting here and there, but a lot of my stories about Bruce involve just meeting people and just sharing that quick conversation of how we both have that passion for Bruce.
By the way, if you have not downloaded or done a Yahoo search, or, a YouTube search, um, someone did a sign request at the Houston show in 2014. It was May 2014. Someone had One Step Up as a sign request, and they mentioned that the whole band had not played it since, like, a Tunnel of Love tour or something. And so they played it, and it was mostly Bruce on guitar with Patty singing backup. But I agree with you. That's a song that you don't hear live much, and I like that song a lot. I believe, that Tunnel of Love can be dated with all the synthesizers and such, but there is
Yeah,
a lot of great songs on that, someone talked about this once, that it's an album exploring a marriage falling apart.
yeah,
And I get that. And I could see, um, we've all had our hearts broken. And I don't know if you've seen the Springsteen and I documentary.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, I do.
where the guy were like, Bruce, I got dumped, and Bruce kind of talks about him. But it is that, that feel and that going there is really, really nice. Well, I'm glad you're playing guitar again. That's always good. What are you studying in university?
I am studying education right now.
Okay.
I don't know how it works down in the States, but we have a program called social studies. I don't know if you guys have that down there.
I don't think so, but continue. I'm
Social
interested.
studies is a collection of geography, history, economics, and I would add politics, I guess. Is a class that englobes all four of those into one class. It's basically a big nerd fest.
Yes, certainly, especially in elementary school and I believe high school, but there you actually have a social studies subject, and it is kind of geography and everything mixed together. Not necessarily history, but a little bit of everything thrown in together. So yes, I'm very aware.
Okay,
So
perfect.
is that your major? Do you want to teach for that?
Well, yes, in a way, I don't plan on teaching for too long because my goal is to become a high school principal.
Oh, okay,
But to get there, you got to start somewhere. So my major is in social studies, but my minor is in English.
okay. And so ultimately, you want to get out of the classroom and more in the administrative end.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're getting way off topic, but I'm fascinated by this. Why do you want to get into the management part of schools?
Well, when I initially started university, I started with the aspect of political science
Yes.
because I love politics in general. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, politics are a little different between your country and my country, but
Right.
the Canadian politics is really weird because we have that whole law of bilinguality up here,
Yes.
because English and French are our official languages. And I frequented a francophone school, and the funding was subpar for the francophone schools, and
Interesting.
that was a result. I mean, there was a result of many things. The fact that I live in a very Anglo-dominant community, and I'm francophone, and we aren't many. Alberta has
Okay.
a population of about, I think, 1.5 million people,
Okay.
and I think about, or I lied to you. Sorry, it's about 2 million people, and about 500,000 of us are francophones.
Okay. Because you certainly it's Quebec, right, where it's very predominantly French, and
Yes.
you
Oh,
hear the other languages. That's I could see that would be a very interesting. I live in Texas, where a very strong Hispanic population, and a lot of things are both in English and Spanish, even though English is well, we don't have an official language but so they will have a lot of state forms, and government forms are
yeah.
both in Spanish and in English. So, and I take it you want to make a difference for that.
Well, it'd be ideal. I mean, I'm not saying that the leadership isn't strong in the French community, but
Yeah.
we have a it's a group of people that basically there was a big rebellion, not a violent rebellion, but it was a
Yeah.
very cultural rebellion that happened back in the early 90s with the francophone community. And what happened is that we kind of hit a stalemate where it continues to be the same families who are running the business, sort of thing.
Right.
And it'd just be nice to have some new blood injected, if I may say, because it's just getting a little bit dated that it's people hiring their friends and people
Right.
hiring, close contacts, and it's becoming more of a political issue within the French community than anything else.
Yeah. and
It's
and I actually I see this tying to your Bruce fandom, because Bruce is very socially active. He is very political, and he is very, none of us win unless all of us win. And there is that sense of community and caring about it. I love we take care of our own
yeah.
for the because we aren't taking care of our own. And the plea at the end to talk about, where is the work that will set my hands free. I can see that tying into and I've been talking to you 40 minutes and I'm reading into your life, but based on what little bit we talked, I can see that Bruce's music feeding that part of you, along with you trying to make things better.
No, absolutely. I would be very inclined to agree, and I mean another big part is that I sit on an executive committee for francophone music in Alberta,
Yes.
and unfortunately, it was with the past government. I don't know if you've heard down there, but we have a new elected government,
Yes.
which is a lot more like the Obama administration. It's a lot more left wing democratic.
Okay. Yes.
We our equivalent of the Republican Party was in control for a long time,
Yes.
and I'm not trying to speak ill of anybody, but what happened is we lost a lot of our funding uh, just through cuts, and it was starting to become real hard for us to be producing music like we had been.
Yeah.
Uh, it was hard for us to get kids involved in francophone music.
And
And with this new government, there's a little more hope that kind of shows up with that, which is really big for us too.
yeah, my sister was a huge in the band when she was in high school. I, sang in the chorus, and I believe in sports, and don't get me wrong, that's what my son loved, and he was active in every sports. But I believe that the liberal arts and the, art and music and all these other kind of curricular activities help someone be a better rounded person.
Oh,
And it is, I remember when my son went to, um, you know, university, or as we call it, college. And even though it's Stephen F. Austin University, you just tend to call it college. And, he said, the guy talking about it said, why, if you're going to major in business, do we make you take a foreign language? Why do we make you take electives? Because we want you to be a learned individual. We want you to
Yeah.
be a well-rounded representative of our university. And I think that's great work and absolutely wonderful. Andre, you've not seen him live. By the way, I'm there is a Bruce to Winnipeg Twitter account that is very active at getting him up to Canada. We're hoping to have him on the show shortly. Let's say he gets there and close enough where you can drive and go, or if he comes to Dallas and you say, "Hey Jesse, if I can get to Dallas, can I crash at your couch?" Do you have a handful of songs you want to hear him? And I realize you're just going to be thrilled to hear anything, but are there 4 or 5 that you'd go, yeah, if I had a bingo card to scratch off, this would be my top wish list?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I definitely gotta. I mean, on the top of the list, I know that this one's a bit more of an. I won't say it's obscure, but I really love the song "Frankie Fell in Love,"
Oh, I love that song from High
and
Hopes,
I
I
would
Pray.
love to see that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be great. Rosalita is another big one.
yes.
Um,
And I will tell you, I was not a big fan of Rosalita till I saw him do it live. And all of
okay.
a sudden I went, wow, and it's not that I didn't like it, it just was kind of there. And seeing him live, just that energy, I kind of fell in love with it all over again. You discover um, Carl Wilson was a member of the Beach Boys, and he talked about that as they were touring, he got tired of singing certain songs. Like he says, if I never had to sing "Help Me, Rhonda" again, I would be so grateful. And he talked about at one show, he was singing "Help Me, Rhonda" in the background, and he looked out and saw the audience joy, and all of a sudden he got a renewed sense of the joy of doing some of these songs. So that's with me. I went, I see that Rosalita joy, and now then when he does it live, I'm just, I have a great time. Um,
Yeah, I
Continue. I'm
can't blame
sorry.
you. I mean, yeah, no, I don't blame you. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
song that even in the studio recording just has so much energy,
Hmm.
and it's so big. Another song that I'd really like to hear him sing. I wrote a very important paper last year on this one, but would be "Downbound Train."
Ah,
I know it's one of the more obscure, lesser welcomed tracks off
yeah.
Born in the USA. However, there's just something about the way that the chords in that sound match his voice and what
Hmm.
the atmosphere of the song. They come together so well.
My brother's favorite song, by the way. What was your paper about?
We had to write basically a paper analyzing the either a movie, music, or story, I believe,
Okay.
and hidden imagery within the actuality of the production.
Okay.
So it was basically I just wrote a big Bruce paper. Uh,
That is greatness.
it was awesome. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great.
What?
I took one song from every album.
Oh, nice.
As I said, it was a huge paper,
Oh, that
and
sounds great.
it was awesome. I mean, that was it for Born of the USA. I chose Downbound Train.
Okay.
Because it was a little bit easier because I was trying to explore some pretty interesting stuff, so I needed something that was going to be somewhat easier for me to analyze.
All right.
But also, just that song was probably the first Bruce song that I learned how to play too on the guitar.
Okay. And it is a song about so much has gone wrong with the narrator's life, yet there
Yeah,
is some joy, there still is hope in this. And that's one of the things that I think is powerful about Bruce. He can write some dark music, but in almost all of the songs there is a kernel of hope. Even Nebraska,
yeah,
has reason to believe,
yeah, absolutely.
as a track.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, So there's all that. I understand that Downbound Train is one of the singles that people weren't necessarily the warmest to, but
Sure.
I really do enjoy that one.
Okay, good. So far, I'm
Uh,
liking your list.
I really, if I had to take a track off Born to Run,
Mm-hmm.
that's not Jungle Land.
Yes.
Uh, Probably Night.
Oh, nice. Okay. I can see
I
that.
love the excitement of that song. Like just the opening part with the screaming of the saxophone. It just, I mean, that was just the best. When I first heard it, that one caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting that.
Do you have a couple more?
Point Blank would be a nice one to hear.
Yes, I can see that. Absolutely.
The Rising, and one that's a little more obscure and probably very like a local thing, as in a Alberta local thing.
Yes.
I mean, there's not much Canadiana music out there, and the little that there is, I mean, we produce some pretty not popular people like Justin Bieber and Carly Rae Jepsen.
Yes.
But just for giggles, and honestly, just for giggles, I would love to see Bruce cover a song from Nickelback.
Okay, there you go. I can see that.
That would
Yeah.
be something that people would be so taken aback by
Mm-hmm.
because of how gutsy it is. Because clearly, not a lot of people support Nickelback, which is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it's really rough to support them just in general.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think if Bruce covered that, that would blow people away because of how just the astronomical odds of him doing that. Because a band called Arcade Fire came through Canada. Well, I guess they are Canadian, but
Mm-hmm.
they came by every city that they played in. They played something that had to do with that city. So like a
Yeah.
band that was from that city. So when they came to Edmonton, I expected them to play Nickelback, but they actually played the Back to the Future theme song
Oh, okay.
because Michael J. Fox is from here.
Bruce did that with his Australian tour.
Yes.
Where he did "Staying Alive," which was a great version. "Highway to Hell." In the Dallas show for the college basketball tournament last year, when he did it, he opened with Van Halen's "Jump," which was a great cover. So yeah, I think that would be kind of fun. I'm originally from Louisiana, and so on my wish list is to have them do Jolie Blanc. He did it
Nice.
on Australia as a sign request, and probably does a week does not go by where I don't go to YouTube and watch them, play that song. So that is great. I like that a lot. So you know what I think we should do in the next couple of weeks is I want you to think about an album you want to talk to me about, and let's schedule another session, and let's you and I go through the album track by track and kind of talk about it if you'd want to.
Sure.
I think that'd
Yeah,
be a
I can
lot of
absolutely
fun.
do that.
I think
Yeah.
I'd like, from your perspective as a fairly new Bruce fan, and also from your point in your life journey, I think that could be an interesting discussion. I've already been impressed with the kind of discussion you've had on different songs, and I think going through an album would be a lot of fun with you.
I concur. I'd love to do that. I
Okay.
mean, as I said, I'm always ready to talk Bruce.
All right. Very nice. So, Andre, thank you so much for being with me and talking. This has been a blast. Any last thoughts or things you want to share?
I mean, there's lots I'd love to share, but I mean, I think I was awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk Bruce. It's really nice also just to have the experience of sharing it with someone else who's as big of a, well, if not bigger, super fan.
Oh,
So
thank
no,
you.
it
That's very
was very
kind of you.
pleasant.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no, it was very pleasant. I enjoyed it a lot.
So, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
The best way to reach me, especially because I'm over in the other country, would probably be through my email.
Okay.
A Prevost. Prevost is in. I don't know. Do you guys have the Prevost bus lines out there?
I do
Like
not
the
think so. Okay.
okay, but yeah, Prevost is in V as in Victor OST. So A Prevost at U Alberta.
Okay.
So literally letter U and the province of Alberta. So ALBERTA
Okay.
.ca.
Okay. Very nice.
That's the
Good.
best way to do that because I
Good.
check my emails frequently because that's what
Okay.
life has come to.
Oh, absolutely. Twitter account?
Yes, Twitter account would be at the Andre Prevost.
And if you, listener, want to be on the podcast and talk about Bruce and all that implies, please send an email at setlustingbruce@gmail.com. We do have a Facebook page and a Twitter account at setlustingbruce. We would appreciate you going to iTunes to rate and review us, or on Stitcher. It helps people find us. I got to say again, Andre, this was a blast. You are a great Bruce fan, and I love your perspective. And we're going to have you on again.
Perfect. I loved you. Thank you so much for having me once again.
Good. And so we're going to close with, and this one we hear a lot, the highway's jammed with broken heroes on a last chance power drive. Everyone's out on the run tonight, but there's no place left to hide. Together, Wendy, we can live with the sadness. I love you with all the madness in my soul. Someday, girl, I don't know when, we're going to get to that place where we really want to go, and we'll walk in the sun. But till then, tramps like us, baby, we were born to run. Thanks, Andre. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.